put on a show, razzle dazzle. I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. No, I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm showing at the top. So get out, so right, just stay. You can train, you can take ya. 'Cause I love, taste up, race, don't place ya. Gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. 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 I'm a vet, 'cause I work with every breath. Man, I love the taste of sweat. I won't have any regrets. They get upset when they try and win the rest. And I'm still right at my best. Make them all feel so pressed. But that's the test. If you wanna be the best, it ain't easy, it's amazing. If you wanna have success, keep going like possessed. Drive it deep into your chest. Every failure is a test. Learn the most, leave the rest. Ain't nobody know what I've been through. Ain't nobody know what I can't do. I'm ready to go to battle. I'll put on a show, razzle dazzle. I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm showing at the top. No, I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm showing at the top. So get out, right, just stay. You can train, you can take ya. 'Cause I love, taste up, race, don't place ya. Gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. Gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. Gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. Gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top.
Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. And I can see it's midnight. I cannot live without you. I'm terrified to see you. Hiding in the darkness. Colder when it's twilight. And I've been feeling restless. Too close, too much, too far gone. I'm yours, you're mine, too far gone. I'm beating too Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. And I can see it's midnight. I cannot live without you. I'm terrified to see you. Hiding in the darkness. Colder when it's twilight. And I've been feeling restless. Too close, too much, too far gone. I'm yours, you're mine, too far gone. I'm breathing too far gone.
All right, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to week 8 of season 4 in the ABL. I am Tyler, as always, and Cal's joining me per usual. How you doing, my man?
Yes, sir. Not doing too bad. Just getting recouped after the 3-day bender or the long weekend. So yeah, it's nice to be sober for a change and see if we can get back on track here. So
Yeah, and I know you and I talked a little bit, obviously, before in the pre-show just about the longer weekend, and we each certainly had very different weekends. But I guess I didn't even ask. Are you okay? Are you
yeah, I'm okay.
recovered?
I said I
You
hiked the
doing
trails
okay?
earlier, which is true. I did hike the trails, but I mean, you got to do some extracurriculars too, like kind of throwing in there. So you got to stagger them in, otherwise it's just bad for the body.
Well,
So, yeah.
hey, I'd be lying if I said when I was hanging around with my kids for 3 days straight that I didn't consume as well. So I participated.
We're back on track though.
Exactly, I participated as well. But yeah, we are back into it. Arguably the most anticipated week of the season. I think at least it's probably been talked about more than any other week so far this season, which is pretty crazy. But a lot to obviously get to and talk about tonight. We'll talk a little bit about power rankings, stuff that we've kind of seen, and then we'll kind of dive into June 1 here, just some positional valuation stuff. I have a couple of questions I'm going to pose to you, just kind of see what your thoughts are, and each of us can kind of talk about what valuations look like to us, what we think valuations look like to the league, what positions we feel like might be moved more than others, etc. We'll talk about this week, and then as always, last podcast of the month. That means a new tier list. So
It's tier list time. I'm pretty pumped.
Oh man, stoked for it. All right, so let's head on over to the power rankings here. So I'll get those pulled up. And just to start off, I know I kind of had a lot of thoughts going into power rankings this week and how I could make them kind of meaningful in a sense, and then also talk about the standings a little bit. So my kind of first big point is the Giants made their climb to number 1. We've talked about the Giants kind of all year, that they continue to have a great roster. So they finally took the number 1 spot, and then they took the number 1 spot away from the Dodgers, who fell 4 spots this week. And biggest reason, just looking at the strength of schedule, looks like they had the 3rd easiest schedule last week. So obviously, even though they may have had a decent week points-wise, it wasn't enough to kind of buoy them from kind of falling off there. So what was your first kind of takeaway? What'd you come away with?
Well, I think Giants absolutely deserve to be that number 1 spot. I could not believe the points they were putting up. So
Yeah.
It wasn't much of a shock, but definitely shout out to Rourke's Giants over there, just leveling the playing field. One thing I was surprised how much the Dodgers fell, because I still think of them as like kind of like in the top 3. So seeing them
Totally.
in 5, I don't know if it's their lowest since like things started to level off. I haven't gone back through all the power rankings.
That's a good question.
But leveling off, I would think would be like week 3. So I don't know if since that point they've been this low. So it was a little jarring to see them that far down the list.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the strength of schedule 2 weeks ago in week 6, it looks like they actually had the hardest week in the whole league. So maybe this is kind of leveling that out, right? You kind of like get rid of the outliers, right? And again, I have to go back and look at the other weeks too, but you get rid of that. Maybe that's why they fell back down, because maybe they weren't, from a power ranking perspective, they actually weren't in the top 3. They've kind of been in that 4 or 5 range. Again, hard to know without going through more of the data, but interesting point for sure.
Yeah, and the amount of spot swapping in the yellow tier, whereas red and green is not that bad. Almost everyone swapping spots.
Yeah.
Actually, everyone is swapping spots in the yellow, but like multiple slots too.
Yep.
So yeah, I found that kind of intriguing as far as the rankings go.
Yeah, and a couple teams moving in and moving out of yellow. Somehow, miraculously, I went 1 and 2 and moved up 2 spots, mainly because I know I had a decently tough schedule last week, playing both the Phillies and the Mets, who beat me. My starting pitching has just been one after the other getting injured this year. It's been crazy. I only had 5 starts, I think, this past week. 3 of which were single digits, so that was always fun. But I moved in the top 10 somehow, and then
is that your first week in the
first
top
time
10?
this year? First time this year. I wasn't in the top 10 at all last year, I don't believe. And then this year, first time. So happy to obviously
That's
see
big.
that.
Happy graduation day.
Yeah, right. I'm happy to see that. I just need teams got to start playing better, and June 1st could not come soon enough. That is for sure. And then the Blue Jays fell out of the yellow. The Rays fell out of the yellow. But then the Nationals, my guys, my pick, they are up into the yellow.
Unlucky Warriors.
We coming, man. We coming.
I mean, they're still a good team. We've been discussing them all year. That it's just bad luck, just crappy. I don't know what's going on with that team. It's better than it looks, basically.
Be interested to see. Tom and Jordan are on the quieter side. Don't talk a ton in the chat. It'll be interesting to see if they're, they're making any moves here and there. I'm not sure what direction they're looking to go in, but and then kind of my last one that I had looked at. The Padres, and I guess I should, as Alan comments in the chat here, I guess I'll bring up Alan too. The Padres and the Rockies still sliding. Seems like we've talked about it kind of like 4 or 5 weeks in a row now that both of them have slid from the top 10. Now they're in the bottom half of that yellow. I know Alan's still stoked to be in the yellow, but we'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're both teams that you specifically, I know, have talked about where like they could be buyers if they wanted to be, right? And they could potentially make some noise in the NL. I'll talk a little bit about the playoff picture here in a second, but that's kind of something that I was looking at too. What are your thoughts on that?
As far as those, I mean, I had said they're like the trap teams, where it's like you can totally go in and buy, but all you're going to do is just hurt yourself probably down the road because then you got to go up against not only your division mates, but they're also stronger. You get the NL Central, you got Adam to worry about. So I mean, I don't know if it's worth it. That they were kind of in that tier of just like, damn if you do, damn if you don't, really. So yeah, it does suck to see him keep sliding.
Yeah. You had one other point here about the Marlins.
Yeah, this was because we brought them up. We had brought them up. I believe last week of like, man, if they go 3-0, it makes it real hard come June 1st. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I think the highest they had was 212 points scored against them. Yep. As the Rangers. So they walked into an easy 3-0 week, and now it's like, okay, I'm behind the Mets, behind the Phillies. I'm not that far off. I can make a push. I can buy if I want to. And they're only 2 spots behind the Mets too, power rankings wise. Yeah, right? Like they're not that far behind. Not a bad team, not a bad record. All signs pointing up. I don't know what I would do if I went 3-0. Yeah. It was an easy 3-0. It's not like I beat like crazy good teams. Yeah. But 3-0 is 3-0. So I would not. It's a decision to be made, unfortunately, at this stage. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. And then another point I want to bring up was it's not really much of a point other than just a sad thing, and it was Lenny not being able to crack 100. Yeah, that bummed me out a little bit. I thought he was going to do it come Sunday, and just could not bring it over the line. Yeah. It's tough for you guys at the bottom. It's the worst. I got to 200 though. You did. I was happy about that. I was like, please. Oh, hey, that's my week. That's my goal every week. Crack 200. I was gonna say we'll hit on you a little bit later in the podcast, but yeah, I agree. I obviously never want to see a team not score 100. That's tough. That's tough. That puts your team in a tough spot. The two other things I kind of wanted to just mention, and I'll pull up Fantrax here just to kind of show this. Standings wise, I just kind of very briefly 2-second look at kind of each division, each conference, see kind of where everyone's at. And to me, right now in the AL, I think we kind of have 6 teams that are solidly in the playoff picture. Would be shocked if they didn't make it out of the AL or make it into the AL playoffs. So the A's and Mariners, pretty straightforward in the AL West. They're both competing there. AL East, Orioles and Yankees, I think pretty straightforward there. And then AL Central, Twins and Tigers. I would put the Royals in there, but I don't know. I never know what Brendan's doing, and he knows that. He's the most confusing person in the league. So I don't know if he's blowing smoke or what he's doing. So I guess a lot, the trades I just literally saw, I think right before this podcast started, he put up on the blog post about Judge and Webb trying to, trade them away and stuff. So we'll see what he does. I think if he doesn't just literally blow his whole team up, I think he's probably that number 7 in the playoff picture right now. And then on the NL side, I actually think there's 8 teams that are kind of solidly in the playoff picture right now.
The three-headed monster in the NL Central, for sure. All three of those teams, obviously super dangerous. NL East, with the Phillies and Mets, for sure being up there. And then, honestly, the Marlins, too, after going 3-0. It feels like they're in pretty solidly in the playoff picture, too, sitting at 14-10. Maybe just on the outside looking in. And then the Giants and Dodgers, obviously out west, probably two of the more heavy favorites, I think. So, any thoughts about that playoff picture?
I feel like that's very fair. There's definitely haves and have-nots in each league.
Yeah.
The massive gap in the AL between the Royals and then you have the 10-win Red Sox and Rays.
Yep.
I mean, who's gonna make a run there? I guess you gotta start asking that question.
Yeah.
NL is a little more murky, but still, I do agree with the Marlins are kind of hot right now.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if the Padres and the Rockies are gonna rip off a couple good weeks. Maybe they are going to buy. Maybe they can leapfrog the Marlins.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a little ugly to kind of sneak in the NL playoff picture more than the AL.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. And it's not like June 1st is going to make or break all of these conversations, right? Like there's a lot of season left, a lot of games to still be played. But I think it will be telling just based on, who wants to start like winning right now, right? And like really kind of try and maximize the amount of value they can get out of trades versus people taking their time to buy, right? Because there's something to be said about that too, getting 30 wins versus 25 wins. That's obviously $5 or $6, $7 worth of money there, and then that's potentially the difference between a title in your division, which obviously is more money there. So, who's kind of willing to pay the price versus who wants to wait, I think is a big deal.
Right.
All right, let's move on to kind of our topic of the evening. I did, just because it just happened like an hour ago, I did want to just briefly mention the big trade that went down. I'm sure you probably saw it. The Cubs and Frank, no surprise, trading Seager to Seth, also no surprise, of the Mariners for Charlie Morton. What are your thoughts? Kind of initial
I freaking
takeaways?
love me some Charlie Morton. He's just like the guy from Major League. He's just got like that massive Vaseline on his shoulder. He just wipes off some on the ball. But no, I don't know what the contract situation is here, but it feels pretty lopsided towards the Seager side. I mean, points wise, I don't know what it's looking like, but.
Let's see. Morton is.
Because I thought Seager had a contract going through to next year, but let me take a look at
Morton's $26, 2024.
Seager's a 2026 as well.
Yeah, Seager's $45.
$45. That's a handicap. That's a bit of. I mean, he's a great shortstop, but man, you are you're hanging your hat on that for some time.
And it's kind of interesting to me too that Seth would make a trade for someone like that. Unless he's got other plans for him potentially, but
more wary of contracts. Yeah.
Well, and not even that, but he's been very vocal about how he feels like this is his last year, kind of in the spot to compete at the level that he's been able to compete in, and so to take on a huge contract like that long term is a little bit surprising. I feel like he would have been on the other end of this, where he should be trying to get like those 2024 guys to help him reset next year and that kind of stuff, but. I know his position of need. Obviously, Frank has been looking for pitching for a long time too. So I think from a talent perspective, I don't think either of us are like, wow, this is super lopsided or anything like that. But I think more so just surprised on the contract side of things, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought we had brought up Seager earlier, and I was like, if he's on contract, that's a tough one to stomach at the deadline, or not really deadline, but towards the dump season, if you will.
Yes.
To kind of take on that massive contract. So I don't. Where would he even rank right now among other shortstops? I'm going to pull up all shortstops and see where he's at.
Okay, I was just saying I can pull it up here too while you're doing that.
Actually, currently the highest paid shortstop at $45. Second most would be Mookie Betts, who can also play second, which I think is probably even more valuable as far as scarcity goes.
Wow, and he's not even. He's the 14th best shortstop right now.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be looking at Trey Turner as far as straight shortstop, and Trey's $40 on a first. Lindor goes through next year at $36 currently.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean that's a chunk of change to be having to work with, especially when we drop back to 260.
Yeah, that's crazy. Interesting. All right. Well, yeah, just kind of wanted to mention that, but let's just kind of talk again. June 1st coming up. Let's talk valuation of trades, and I'll kind of set this up, to you to hopefully tee you up for to give a good answer here, maybe an elaborate answer, but
That's asking a lot.
Yeah, I hear you. I expect a lot out of you, though. Right?
Thank you. I need someone.
Yeah. So from when we look at when we talk about positional evaluation, right? The value in the league and so much of this league just in general is subjective, right? Our comments on Seager and Morton and them being traded and their contracts 100% subjective. None of that is an objective fact in any way, shape, or form. So I think that in and of itself makes this type of conversation murky and cloudy, right? Like there is no right answer, but I also think that's what makes this conversation exciting, right? Is like hearing different opinions and how other people view their teams and stuff. Because I'm sure there are some teams in the league you look at and you're like, that team is dog shit. I would never run my team that way, right?
Yes, mine.
I was just gonna say that I bet there's other people who look at our teams and say, "What the hell is this guy doing? What is happening right now?" So that perfect response, because that's what it feels like sometimes. Like I think of in some of the conversations I have, especially around this time of year and trading and stuff like that, it feels like some people, right, based on kind of what we're talking about and roster composition and that kind of stuff, they think I'm nuts with my valuations. And vice versa, certainly too. I'm sure it happens all over the league, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there that all of this that we're going to be talking about is 100% subjective. But my first real question to you, kind of about positional evaluation, is what positions do you believe? And again, we're talking strictly ABL, right? Not Major League Baseball, not any other fantasy league, strictly ABL. What positions are most valuable? And I think we probably all know the answer to that question, but I more so want to hit on the why. Why are they valuable? So to you, what's your answer to that? What's most valuable, and then why?
I believe Seth had even brought it up prior to in his own chats where it's like outfield. It feels super easy to get outfield. I would not put that in the list at all. I would put more positions where it's like first, like I would say first or second base. I think third base is sometimes where maybe more athletic players will get banished to. You're not seeing very many first. I mean, if you're basically just getting fat guys at platoon at first base. It's not really like a great position. So if you can get a solid first baseman, there's not very many of them out there. There's maybe like 5 elite ones or maybe 3 elite ones if you really want to push it.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, it's pretty ugly out there at first base. So I'd probably put that as far as position players. Okay. I'd still think starter is king by far. I don't think it's really even close. I think people will say that they aren't looking for pitching or maybe not shopping it, but I mean, at the end of the day, they definitely are.
Yeah.
So I mean, if especially now where Seth Lugo is like probably, we never would have thought going into the year, but he's like good as gold right now. Like he's probably like he's like a crown jewel at the moment. So, I think for as far as infielders go, I would say probably first base just because it's pretty ugly. I don't think outfield's incredibly valuable, and I still think pitching trumps everything. In all the league. And
so then evaluate on why, right? Because I look at that and the easy answer is, well, starting pitching, it's probably the hardest position to find good, consistent pitchers that don't injure themselves every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Very simple. First base, it's because it's arguably the shallowest position of all the positions in fantasy, at least right now. And then outfield, to me, I feel like outfield, there is a plethora of outfielders, not necessarily good outfielders, but there's a plethora of them because a lot of the bench guys and a lot of the utility guys all play those kind of roles too, right? And so they get eligibility there, and that just gives more players those types of positions, etc. Whereas how many guys do you know just come off the bench and exclusively play first base?
Right.
Not very many, right? So
yeah,
I think that's a big part of it. But why else to you, I guess, outside of the depth conversation or the depth reasoning, why else are they so valuable?
Are you saying like elite first baseman?
Yeah, first baseman and pitchers, or why else is outfield not like? Because I guess here's my argument is, okay, there's a lot of outfielders, which is great, right? But if there's a lot of shitty outfielders, to me that's just as bad as a lot of shitty first basemen, right?
Right.
So why does the depth piece Why does that matter so much? Right?
I
Why is that such a big
don't want
deal?
to say that the scarcity. I don't think for first base comes with depth. I think scarcity comes of actual like I feel good about playing this guy.
Gotcha.
Like I have 4 first basemen on my team. I don't feel good about playing any of them on a given day. But it's like the actual guy that can go out and
Yeah.
get points for me. That is pretty scarce at first base. Whereas plus you don't draft a first base prospect.
Yeah.
I mean, usually they become first baseman over time. So
That's fair.
it's pretty rare that you get a guy developed at that position who's going to stay there, or he doesn't get banished to DH, which is basically outfield, So yeah, I do think that at the high end, if someone was trying to get someone at dump date, I would think a elite first baseman would be a little harder to get than maybe an elite shortstop or something like that.
Interesting. And so would you also argue then if so hypothetical, you are someone who let's say you did have a good first baseman on your team and you had 4, right?
Yeah.
You were able to trade that away, right? And you needed starting pitching. Could you see a scenario where you're getting 1-to-1 value?
Yeah, I mean, with enough pitching, anything is possible. I feel.
True.
I mean, if I'm not getting 7 starts in a week, which I mean, of course,
Yeah.
then I feel like that's a more important thing I got to fix because I can get so many. I mean, I guess it would depend on how many points you're getting per week
Sure.
out of your first baseman. Because if he's not getting over, I don't know. I guess it would be. I think the threshold would be like 35 points in a week when I can get 2 starts out of a pitcher that can kind of go over that or equal that for a decent pitcher.
Yeah.
Then I guess that would be your benchmark. But
Okay.
it had to be. I think it had to be, all depends on player for player.
Okay.
I don't know, and also who I can throw in at first base, if at all, if anybody. Can I throw in who do I have? I mean, what garbage guy do I have? Like Kike Hernandez. Let's throw him in the mix. Like I'm not trading any first baseman to throw Kike in at first base. I'm not trading him for anything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go get a pitcher for that. I'll just keep my elite first baseman.
Yeah.
My lineup will be so affected by putting Kike in every day at first that I don't think I would trade him for much, like a Josh Naylor. I would not trade a Josh Naylor for much. I shouldn't say for much, but it would take a lot to move Josh Naylor.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah.
If it means Kike is every day.
Yeah.
I guess is probably the best way to kind of frame that.
And so then kind of the last piece of this conversation too, to me, is the valuations change based on what team these players are on too, right?
Yeah.
Because a Josh Naylor on your team looks a lot different than a Josh Naylor on my team, right? In terms of, 1, our willingness to move a guy like that, right? But then 2, what we're going to be able to get for that from a valuation perspective. And I know I even on the block post, I put up, that I was open to potentially selling some of my MLB talent as well, if that was, a route someone was really interested in, X player. I'm open to that and gaining some picks and prospects or whatever. Whereas for you, I'm going to imagine 99% of what you are looking for is cheap, controllable players at the MLB level, and then picks or higher end prospects. Would I be correct in assuming that?
Pretty boilerplate, crappy team behavior, yes.
And I feel like, based on all the posts we saw today, that a lot of teams are in that position, right? Yeah. And so that, to me, changes the valuation of a lot of stuff. It changes the valuation of picks and prospects for sure, right? Because those are going to be highly sought after. So the selling teams are going to probably be, or the most successful selling teams are probably going to be the ones who are willing to, I don't want to say, I don't know if settle is the right word, but instead of taking that top 50 guy, they take the top 100 guy instead, because that's what gets the trade done, right?
Right.
Whereas the buyers on our side, like, I know myself and Jeff and Rourke and Joe and, all of us are going to be buyers for sure. We're probably going to be more successful in being willing to give up the top 100 guy instead of the top 150 guy, right? And again, that's just, basic negotiating, but it's very interesting to me to look at different teams, and especially in talking to a lot of sellers, that they view their, very middle of the road, let's say second baseman, as much higher than I view their middle of the road second baseman who is going to sit on my bench 5 days a week, right? But he's been a starter for them all season. And so that's kind of a different lens to look at it through as well, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, no, that feels very fair. And that's the hard part too, is negotiating, is that, like you said, we have 30 different opinions about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like my first base opinion, there's no, I mean, I doubt maybe 5 people might agree with it at best. So yeah, I don't, it is tough when dealing with that, because there's so many different opinions that you're trying to, I guess, accommodate. I don't know the best way to phrase that, but yeah, it makes it tough.
Yeah. In that conversation too, I know I had kind of put in our notes talking about the exceptions to these valuations, and maybe that's more what I'm trying to get at, and what I'm saying is that there are always going to be exceptions to these valuations, right? Because of the subjectivity, just in general, there's always going to be exceptions. But there's going to be exceptions just based on place in the standings for teams, right? I'm in first in the AL Central. I was the number 1 seed in the AL for a long time, and I feel like my team is not good, right? That to me is a problem, and so my valuations in terms of what I want for my team are going to be very different than say someone else who, like the Giants, for example, who Rourke, I would hope, probably feels pretty good about his team, right? That would be my hope. So the evaluations will change there too. Now moving to more ABL specific talk and trades, what positions, and you can list as many as you want, doesn't matter to me, but what positions, and by positions I'm also including prospects and picks, what do we think are most likely going to be moved come, let's say, once June 1st hits, let's say within the first week after that? What do you think the top positions being moved are going to be?
So specs is like its own position.
Specs is its own position.
I mean, I put that 1-1 for sure. I don't think it's even close, because even if you're trying to get, a pitcher, it's probably going to take a couple of specs to get a pitcher or of some sort, whatever combination. But I do think if you had to like tally it all up when it's all said and done, it probably goes specs, picks. I don't know, like outfielders. I don't, could just as like a throw in, like, hey, I just need a guy to back up my depth piece going into the rest of the year. You just throw them in there, and then you got starting pitchers, and then I assume probably relievers maybe get thrown in as well.
Okay,
just like, hey, I need to get under. I have too many starts at the moment. I have crappy relievers. You're getting a guy that's averaging 4 or 5 a game. Yeah, that would help me out trying to get under the start limit, but get a good reliever. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I had initially put starters, relief pitchers, and then specs. But thinking about it now, and the reason I guess I had put starting pitchers first in terms of just the most likely to be moved, was I'm thinking that when people are moving starting pitchers, they're not just gonna go for specs. I guess I'd look at like that cheap controllable MLB type talent, maybe a different starting pitcher in a sense. Sure. But that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, is that maybe teams will, because just teams have more prospects, right? It's the, I guess, biggest amount of chips we have as an owner, right? That maybe those are more likely to be traded. But I agree. I think I'm pitching for sure. It'll be interesting to see like the outfield thing that you mentioned. Like it could be because there's a lot of it, but it could also not be because there's a lot of it, right? I feel like it kind of could go both ways. I will be interested to see if like first base, if there's any movement there. Lamont Wade, my backup first baseman, just went on the IL today, so I no longer have a first baseman. So I need a second baseman or a first baseman.
I guess, but what I want to I think it's easier to upgrade a depth center, like a depth outfielder, than it would be. So that's where I think it comes in. It's easier
that's
to
right. You did say
depth,
didn't you? That's right.
I'm not saying you're going to go out and get like an elite outfielder. I'm just saying that like it's easier for me to replace my 2 points a game center fielder with maybe a 2.5 or something like that, where I feel a little more comfortable starting him every day, or maybe not even every day, just like in case I get an Acuna that goes down. But rest in peace. But yeah, that's the type of like throw in where we have 3 outfielder slots, so that does make it its own. That makes its own market where you still need to field 3 of them a day. So yeah, I think it'll be more of a depth thing than anything.
Interesting. No, that's a good point. I missed that you mentioned that, so that makes sense. Awesome. All right. Well, let's if you're good with that, let's move on to this week. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm gonna pull up the head-to-head schedule here. skip down to period 9. There we go. All right, so some good matchups this week that I just kind of pulled from looking at some of the games here. Dodgers Cardinals be a great game. I mean, I think you and I, given who we predicted as World Series champs at the beginning of the year, I think that this would be our NL championship in a sense. So that'll be an interesting matchup to watch. The Cubs and the Phillies play each other. So that'll another big time matchup there. If the Cubs can pull out a win against the Phillies, Adam has a down week or something like that, that is going to be a huge win for Frank. Big enough to where he might say screw it and say I'm going for it again.
I take down a huge. That's a big division winner.
Yeah, well,
especially to go after,
especially when he. I mean, maybe he will play Adam one more time this year, but he may not. So that's a huge hurdle to be able to get a win off of that. That's a big deal. Next, Yankees and Orioles as well. Obviously, huge AL East battle there. Yankees obviously trying to catch up to Baltimore, so that'll be a big deal.
I think that probably is the most intriguing one because the Yankees, their other two opponents seem like kind of cakewalks at the moment. So they can rip off a 3-0 if they can beat their division rival, essentially. So that would be massive.
Yeah, and Baltimore has Detroit and who else they have? And then Colorado. So, I mean, Detroit obviously going to be tough. And then, who knows? Maybe Allen can spring an upset too, and Gary Yankees can pull off a 3-0 week, gain some ground. That would be a big one. And then my last one is you. You have a shot, my friend, at a 3-0 week this week.
Yeah.
This is a crazy schedule for you. You got the Braves, who probably will be your toughest opponent, I would think.
Well, yeah, I think, I don't know. Padres have had some pretty high scoring weeks.
Padres have two.
They can put like a 270 on me. I didn't even know it.
But with how much they've been sliding and kind of again, possible win there. And then your last one is, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember where you are on here, but your last one I feel like is the easiest one. The Rangers.
The Rangers.
You're playing the Rangers too. So hey.
I'm okay to mark it down right now. I'll pen it in.
3-0. 3-0.
I've been on my grind. I need a 3-0 and then just sell everything.
Right.
I just
to top it
all
off.
the boys.
Pop the champagne. We did it. We're good.
We did it. Now get the hell out of here. We're bringing in a 12-year-old. He's going to come. He's our best prospect here. We got him from the DSL. So he's going to be. We got him from Steve. Steve gave us some Dominican kid.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be the future of baseball in about 20 years. So,
well, any other matchups you kind of had your eye on? Anything you were looking at?
Win watch for White Sox. White Sox win watch against the Rangers. So I don't know how far the Rangers have to fall, but this feels like one of the better times that the White Sox can strike to get their one win.
I mean, if the White Sox win, that means you better also have one.
I gotta go 3-0.
Right? Like you better also have one then at least. So that'd be really beneficial to you.
I'm making sure I actually have the right. Okay, no, I do have the right. No, I have the wrong week. It was for next week. I'm an idiot. Oh, so okay, all right. Hold on.
Who's got this week? Yankees.
Let me just. I'll cut and paste this into next week's show.
Perfect.
And then I'll say next week. Win watch. So I knew I goofed up. It felt too good to be true.
I was just saying,
too much winning, and for all the losers in one week, all be winning.
His schedule is the Dodgers, the
Rockies, I looked at the hardest schedule ever. I saw that because I was like, wait a minute, he's getting slaughtered right now. What's going on here? I had to look into it further. I'm like, I'm dead wrong. That's why.
Oh my goodness.
So I will preface it by next week. Win watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just giving everyone a head start basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want anyone missing out on a potential White Sox win. Too
funny. All right. Well, some good games this week. We'll have to check in next week on them. But last but not least, and maybe before we just to keep the suspense up for the tier list here at the end, your dad in the chat is saying the question of the day.
Oh no, is this gonna be a thing?
It has nothing to do with you. It actually has to do with me.
Cool. All right, cool.
It's question of the day. Does Tyler look more like Keegan Michael Key? Or does he look like James Franklin? And to be honest with you, I have never once in my life been compared to either of them.
Pretty
I
fair.
think both
Reasonable.
of them are. I love them
Damn.
both. I love them both. Right?
Damn.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'd prefer. I'd prefer Keegan if I had to choose one because that man
I
is
would, yeah.
hilarious. But
I would love to be compared
And
to
then
that.
Alan says apparently I'm a mix of the two. It's
That's
got to
pretty
be
fair.
it's got to be the glasses for Franklin, right? It's got to be
Fair.
And then
I
maybe
think
this
reasonable.
too. That probably has something to do with it. But
I think that's one of the, probably the larger factors of the whole thing.
Unbelievable.
Most likely.
leave it to your dad to bring the real content to this podcast.
That's what we need. We need more of the content.
My
Please.
goodness. All right, let's get to the tier list here. I have it pulled up here.
All right, you do have it pulled up.
You are good to go, and I will
Okay,
say
we're looking at our
I will say before we get started that
yes.
when I pulled this up initially and just had it ready, and I saw this was the opening slide. Oh, right in the heart, brother.
Listen.
In the heart.
I love Bill Walton. Just like just joy of the world, and it's so sad that we lost him, but he's in a much better place. So shout out Bill Walton, but I also think that he would want us to continue
This
on
one's for him.
with our tier list.
This one's for him.
Yes.
Let's go.
And I think this is a great quote that a lot of our buyers can live by. You don't win championships by just being normal, by just being average.
I love it.
So I think it's a great way to kick off the dump date.
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Go all in. You can't just be normal by being average. It's just not going to win that way. So yeah, after that we'll roll into our first tier here.
Let's
we got
do it.
kind of a stacked at the top. I had to pick 4 because if anyone's seen the movie Mean Girls,
Yeah.
anyone that's seen it knows the plastics.
Great
And basically,
reference.
it's like it's the popular girls in school. They look at all the other girls and they say, "You can't sit with us. We wear pink on Wednesdays." They're terrorizing the whole place.
Yep.
You know, they're popular and they're bullies. And this is our top 4. These are our popular bullies, and they're just gonna level the playing field with everybody. It's gonna be a
love
harder week if you're playing this top tier.
Love it.
We'll go into our next tier here. This is a little more nefarious.
Oh.
I threw you in here.
Yes.
So I know you're a buyer.
Oh my goodness.
I know you're a buyer. See, this is what this is. This is more of like a predatory tier where they
Hell
take
yeah.
these low, maybe like grandma's putting up her house. Oh, here comes BlackRock. We're buying your house. Grandma, get the hell out of here. And these are what these people do. That's what they do. They wait for your team to suck, and they come in, they buy your house, and they take your best player,
That's
and
great.
they put them on their team, and they win.
That's great.
It's horrible. They do it every time.
I love it.
So yeah, I threw these 4 buyers into the BlackRock tier.
I love it.
So we'll go into our next tier here. This one. Listen, all this was thought up randomly, all in a row at like 1 a.m. last week. I don't really remember why I thought of this, but I think I know why now in the heat of the moment. Basically, this is like you show up at the bar, you find out you're the DD, which fucking blows. But sorry for cursing. Sorry for cursing. Anyway, blows. Sorry, I blew it. All right. Anyways, so you show up, it's horrible. Your day is already ruined. But on top of that, either everyone's having a good time or you have the crowd that's having the worst day of their life. Either way, you're watching teams dump.
Yeah.
You're watching teams, get these prized players. And meanwhile, you're just there the same. I mean, you just get to watch everyone have fun or have the worst day of their life. And you're just kind of in the middle. And I did put some surprising teams in here where I do think maybe Joe's not going to push on buying as heavy as we thought.
Yeah.
I think the Yankees are sliding a little bit. It's going to be a little different for them.
Yep.
I think Duke's going to have to bargain a lot to get any pieces. So yeah, I think there's going to be some. I think there's going to be some DDs around here. Some double DDs.
Interesting. I love that. Love that.
So we're going to our next tier here. This is our Red Lobster tier. If anyone hasn't heard the horrible news,
It is sad.
Red Lobster has filed for bankruptcy.
Very sad.
I mean, it was a train coming down the tracks from
Those
a long,
biscuits,
long
man.
ways away.
Those
Cheddar Bay?
gosh darn biscuits.
Cheddar Bay. Now you got to buy them in the box. So at Walmart, that's your only shot. Anymore
Crazy.
because of BlackRock. Blame BlackRock.
I guess I only have myself to blame, right? I only have myself
Exactly.
to blame.
That's who's doing this. But basically, these are just people. These are just teams that had a good run. You can be proud of it, but it's time to call it a day. And this is
love it.
just like Red Lobster. Red Lobster had a historic run, but it's time to go home now and let's put it all.
Interesting. So
Cheddar Bay.
interesting. You have Miami, Kansas City, and the Mets in there.
I do have the Mets.
That is
I did it as
that is
as
interesting.
motivation. I didn't do it to be a hater. I did it for motivation. I want them to
Hey,
buy.
you don't win championships by being
You
average.
No, you cannot be average. This
can't.
is like buy. This is a call to arms. If anything.
Someone put you up to this to give us buyers a kick in the ass. That's what they did. Someone's paying you.
Last week was a test when I called everyone a loser. Anyone that couldn't go through me calling them a loser, me at the last place in the whole league. If you couldn't handle me calling you a loser, you need to toughen up. You weren't going to win the whole thing anyways.
Get your life together. Get your stuff figured out.
Yeah. You were not going to win this whole thing if that was the attitude you had. Like, oh, well, Cal said I'm a freaking loser. Yeah, you are. If you listen to me. Idiot. All right, we go to our next.
I love it.
This is our in memoriam.
Oh my goodness.
These are just teams that are dead. Also, Andrew Hernandez. Rest in peace, Andrew Hernandez.
I mean,
in memoriam.
We really don't have to say R.I.P. to him. We can just say sayonara, good riddance.
Yeah, sayonara.
But
100%. I had to at least throw him in here, just as like because it's not we're not really mourning the loss of Angel.
Correct.
We're mourning the loss of being able to be like, this guy's so stupid. I hate this guy.
Yes.
I hope he gets fired.
Yes.
We don't get to do that anymore.
People can't complain on Twitter, right? People love to complain on Twitter, and now they don't have a reason.
There's no Joe West.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Like I think the closest thing we have is CB Buckner, and that doesn't feel fun.
Baseball's good now. We're back.
No, because they're spread about. That's the problem.
They are 100%.
They're all. There's a bunch of Angels everywhere. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Too many Angels.
Yeah.
And we'll go into our final tier here, and this is the White Sox tier. And as you notice, we have teams that are not the White Sox in it. And I was gonna keep Lenny out of this tier. I was just gonna fall on the sword here. But 95 points will get you in the White Sox.
Yeah. I think that defines the White Sox tier, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was gonna.
You honestly could have probably made this the Reds tier, and it still would have been the same.
Fair. Honestly, kind of fair. I guess that's reasonable.
3-0 though. 3-0 gets you out of this tier.
100%.
Gets you out of this tier.
If anyone goes 3-0, I mean, I'll put myself in the Red Lobster tier.
Hell yeah!
Like, listen, we had a good run.
Now
go home.
See ya.
Off into the sunset. I'm selling everything. I'm selling my house to BlackRock, and I'm just gonna retire. So yeah.
Oh, I love it, man. That is so freaking good. God, I look forward to this every month, man. It's so good.
Happy to hear it. There's our May tier list in the books.
Love it. Well, thanks for hanging out as always. I'm pretty sure I looked down at my Discord notifications, and I'm pretty sure I have like 100 notifications right now from all the trade chatter going on. But before we get off, I got to do a score check.
Ooh.
I am hoping and praying.
Oh, yes.
And we are tied at halftime, 49-49, which only means that Luka is going to hit some kind of game winner in the last 3 or 4 seconds.
There was some stat where it was like the combined score differential was like 13.
Dude, it's just for whatever reason, the Timberwolves don't know how to defend a pick and roll. And we just can't stop Kyrie. We can't stop Luka. It's just crazy. So here's to hope. And this is the only thing that I will say. I didn't watch any of their previous series until Game 7 because I didn't like how they were playing. I was tired of watching them. But I watched Game 7 and I put this sweatshirt on. Ever since they won that Game 7,
huge mistake. Yeah,
I have not worn that sweatshirt. So tonight,
you gotta break it out. Did you wash it?
We need the dub.
You better not.
I did not.
Good.
Heck,
good. I mean, that's there's no way you can wash that thing.
Nope.
If you lose, then you totally
burn it. If we win, if we somehow teams are 0 and 155 in conference finals when being down 0-3. So if we become the one, I'm going to probably put this sweatshirt on eBay and see what I can get for it.
Oh, my word, yeah. Yeah, you have video proof now that it happened.
Right?
That's the good news. It's like certified, like certified baseball.
That's true. Check out the podcast. Check out the podcast. That's really all it is.
We're on the eBay link, you just link the podcast.
We're just trying to get paid here, guys.
Please, pod. Here's the Venmo.
Awesome. Well, Cal, appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much. Zach, don't worry about the messages, brother. If it's you coming to me, I appreciate it. We will be back next week with more. I don't know. Maybe we'll have craziness. Maybe we'll have nothing to talk about. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But with that being said, have a great rest of the week, Cal. Thanks as always. We'll talk to y'all next time.
Go Wolves.
Bye, everyone.
Let's go, let's go. Time to grind, time to get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line, cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life. I feel alive when I got a goal in sight. Chip away, I gotta fight. Ain't nobody else in sight. Man, I think I see the light. Yeah, that shit is so bright. Follow me, I got the key. I see you on the other side. Ain't nobody know what I've been through. Ain't nobody know what I can do. I'm ready to go either battle. I'll put on a show, got some dazzle. I'm about to take off. Never gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. I'm about to take off. Never gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. So get out, right, right, Tuesday. You can train, yeah. 'Cause I love, taste up, race, yeah. Gonna start till I'm showing. 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 I'm a vet, 'cause I work with every breath. And I love the taste of sweat. I won't have any regrets. They get upset when they try and just to rest. And I'm still right at my desk. Make them all feel so pressed. But that's the test. If you wanna be the best, it ain't easy, it's amazing. If you wanna have success, keep going like we going. Driving deep into your chest. Every failure is a test. Learn the most, leave the rest. Ain't nobody know what I've been through. Ain't nobody know what I can do. I'm ready to go either battle. I'll put on a show, got some dazzle. I'm about to take off. Never gonna stop till I'm showing till I'm top. I'm about to take off.